Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Untitled Marvel Project. It's our special little series where, for the first time in the history of YouTube and the universe, if I may be so bold, we sit down, we rank every single Marvel film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
If you want to hear the other videos, there's a playlist with them that have them on our channel, which you should subscribe to. Yeah. And from my delivery, you should already tell us it's going to be a great video, so you can hit that like. And if you want to hear more profound statements from me, you should join the Discord.
Yes,
that link's in the description, by the way, just so you know. Fellas, I'm afraid Iron Man 2 may or may not have broken my brain for this video today, because that's the one we're talking about today, isn't it?
Yes, and it certainly is.
It's sort of an infamous little Marvel film, isn't it? It's much maligned against by MCU fans and haters alike.
Yes.
But I'm interested to hear if you guys, if it went up or down in your personal ranking, but on this most recent watch through. So, Abram, why don't you tell me your thoughts on the film Iron Man 2?
If I have to, I will.
Okay.
So here's the thing about it, right? I haven't seen Iron Man 2 since whenever it came out on DVD. My family was a big wait till things come out on DVD type of family. And so I all I remembered from this movie was the fight on the racetrack and Ivan using the potato bomb to escape from his cell. That's all I remember.
Okay, that's a very small portion of the film.
Yeah. And so one thing I was curious about was this movie is always considered to be one of the worst Marvel films, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look on my least favorite site on the internet, Rotten Tomatoes, it actually has fairly good scores in the 70s, actually, for critics and audiences, which I found pretty interesting because I think this movie is a disaster. However, I think that it is a very fun disaster.
Sure.
Right? I think that this movie is where the MCU, as we understand it now, really comes into its own. And what I mean by that is the crossovers. It's here's Black Widow, here's kind of the jokiness, the zaniness, right? I think Iron Man 2 is where, beyond the first two films, we start to see the MCU come into its own in the most rudimentary sense. And because of that, I think this movie is damn fun. I think it's got a lot of interesting moments and fun character performances, but I think that they're all stuck inside an absolute disaster of a plot. And because of that, I have a hard time reconciling like the objective lack of quality here with my subjective enjoyment of just the ridiculousness that is Iron Man 2.
Sure.
I think the thing is, there's a lot of fun ideas in here. There's a lot, as you said, a lot of great moments, a lot of great characters, a lot of great character interactions, a lot of things that are introduced. But there are just so many of them that it doesn't know what to focus on. And I think with one of the 4 to 5, let's say, main plots going on at once, if one or two of those was trimmed out, I think you could actually have a really compelling and interesting Tony Stark continuation of his story, introducing new characters, expanding the role a little bit. But they just throw so much in there. And for me, all of these issues circle back right around to one man, which is Ivan Vanko. And I think that his inclusion in the plot contributes a couple of jokes and a mediocre action sequence, and that's about it. I think if he was removed, you could spend much more time fleshing out the things that feel actually weighty, important, and entertaining. But unfortunately, he's a gigantic cockatiel wrench in this fucking thing,
or cockatoo wrench, if you will, which is the kind of bird that he has.
No, that's what cockatiel and cockatoo are different things.
The point is the Ivan Vanko plotline walked so that Batman vs Superman could run.
Yes,
that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Oh, they are different birds. Oh, you're right. He does have a cockatoo.
He has a cockatoo.
Yeah. Well, they're very different.
Well, Tucker, since you thank you. Tucker, since you brought him up, I want to talk about Mickey Rourke as Ivan Drago, or Ivan Vanko, excuse me. Because what is he? What's this performance that he's delivering? Why did they cast Mickey Rourke as a Russian guy? Why is he? What is his plan? What is his? Yeah, exactly, right. I think Abram brings up a good point about how this walk so BVS could run, in terms of the villain having a unclear to convoluted plan.
It's not even that. He wants to make the gods bleed. I thought Zack Snyder fucking wrote 5 pages of the script for this movie. And my issue with Whiplash is not necessarily that he's a bad character concept or anything, right? And in the most circumspect fucking 15-minute detour you could have possibly taken, eventually we come back around and find out the relationship between Tony Stark's dad, Howard Stark, and Ivan's dad, who I'll not even pretend I remember the name
Anton.
Excuse you. I apologize. So
we just watched this like 10 minutes ago.
Sure. Yeah. My point is there is an interesting idea here, but Tucker is completely right. You have to go from main plot A to main plot H to draw the connection between the two. And that's just a big issue.
Well, especially I think at the beginning, which is I think the first half of this film is a ton of fun. I think it has a great pace. It's got some great humor, great character moments, but you're getting these fun sequences. You're getting Tony interacting with Pepper and doing all this stuff. And then you just cut away to Ivan Vanko fucking tinkering in his Russian shack. And it always breaks the momentum. You're like, oh, okay. Oh, they're heading somewhere. They're doing something. These relationships, but oh, nope. Ding, ding, ding. It's time for our scheduled Ivan Vanko check-in, which I do not give a fuck about and barely makes any sense and is always really dark. And that really changes the pacing of the first half of this movie. If that was trimmed out, there'd be so much more momentum and energy. That those sequences small scenes just take out of that first half of the movie.
I think that's a great point, Tucker, because I was trying to pinpoint like, oh, when does this film start to falter for me? And I think it is after that Nick Fury and Black Widow scene in the donut shop with Iron Man. I think that's a lot of fun. And after that, it's sort of for me. But you're right. Yeah. It's like I say that, but after that, we get the element creation scene. We get, that conversation between Tony and Pepper with it, which I think is pretty good. It is really just the Whiplash stuff. And I hate to say it, but that comes packaged with the Justin Hammer stuff that sort of derails this film. And I think you're absolutely right that there is a version of the script that's maybe villainless that is better somehow, which is very interesting.
Well, I think the antagonist in Justin Hammer is phenomenal.
Yes.
I mean, his performance is great. His chemistry with Tony Stark is phenomenal. His lines are so good. When he's showing all those guns off and he gets to the ex-wife and he just goes on a fucking tirade of all these dumb things, the ways to describe it. Oh, it's so good. Yes. And I wish the dynamic between Justin and his resentment for Tony and their relationship together, I wish that had been fleshed out. You remove Whiplash, you give a lot more time to Justin Hammer, a lot more time for the two of them to interact. That is a much more compelling villain with better motivation, better performance, and even like him being a rival arms dealer is an interesting conceit for a villain.
Yeah, I mean, you could honestly just have Justin Hammer be the guy who creates the drones that are meant to take out Tony Stark at the Stark Expo and completely get rid of. I mean, you wouldn't really have like a middle action sequence, I guess, that one of the racetrack you would have to get rid of that. But I mean, for a cohesive story, I don't know if that's much of a sacrifice.
No, I agree completely. And there's two things I want to say. First of all, Ivan, to that point in the Army Hammer storyline, what's his fucking first name again? Justin Hammer.
Justin Army Hammer.
Ivan does not matter. Ivan was brought in to do something for Justin that he just blatantly didn't do. Right. Justin's plan completely changes, and Ivan just turns into a fucking Silicon Valley hacker in the back room with his manned up bun and clear plastic glasses.
His toothpick.
It's always got a toothpick.
Always got a toothpick.
It doesn't make any sense. There's no need for him to be there. I agree with you guys completely. But if we're talking about things that don't make sense, I want to talk about that racetrack sequence.
Okay.
And I put this in Discord. I said the racetrack action sequence is one of probably the two big action vignettes in the movie.
Yeah. Yes.
But it makes no logical or spatial sense at all.
No.
It is it is one of the most incoherent action scenes I've ever seen. Like I don't understand how you went from conceptualizing that to executing it and not realizing that this just does not work.
Yes. Because on concept, pretty cool idea to have a supervillain attack a racetrack and cars are crashing around them. There's spectators watching. From that conceptual level, a fight sequence there in a Mission Impossible or a James Bond or something would be awesome. Right. Whiplash cutting up the cars, Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
The cars are really far apart in terms of they're going real fast, but they don't get to the that area of the track at a consistent pace.
Mm-hmm.
I love the suitcase suit up. That's
that's great.
That's great conceptually, but it didn't really do anything. It's just another Iron Man suit.
Like, it's cool though. It's cool to look at it.
Let's just walk through this for a second, right?
Okay, all right.
Whiplash steps onto the track.
Yes.
Whiplash cuts the front off of one of the Formula One cars.
Correct.
That guy dies in a fucking fireball.
Yes.
Nobody comes around the corner for a while.
No.
Good amount of time.
Happy and Pepper get in an SUV. They drive the opposite direction down the track.
Upstream.
They drive upstream.
Around the block to the racetrack.
Happy has the Iron Man suit in the briefcase handcuffed to him.
Yes.
The key to the handcuff is in his pocket. Mm-hmm. Somehow the key gets out of his pocket. Okay, just forget about it. Tony comes around the corner. Tony gets cut in half. He flies over completely unharmed. Gets out of the
unscathed. Yeah.
Ivan, by the way, very calm and collected. The armed security guards, no interest in opening fire.
No.
Finally, Happy and Pepper come around. Ivan cuts literally every single part of the car except for where Happy or Pepper are sitting.
Yes.
Can't touch Tony. Right.
Also, by the way, there's the other 24 race cars have not shown up at this point.
Correct. The other thing we have to note, of course, is the fact that Happy slams Ivan into the wall with
multiple times.
Multiple times.
This guy is just a guy. He's got. I don't think he has armor below his waist either.
No, it's a jumpsuit. He's got no exoskeleton. He is like. There are a lot of important bones here.
Yeah, there's a pelvis there that kind of holds all your legs in place and everything.
A couple organs too.
He gets his bones get turned to dust, similar to Emil Zola in the Incredible Hulk, card in the corner.
Yes,
Zola Blonsky. Emil Zola is a Best Picture winner.
Oh wait, watch out! Quest for the Bestest series.
Yeah.
Point being, the fight makes no sense, and the reason this matters to me, because there's a certain suspension of disbelief inherent to all of these superhero action sequences. And by the way, we didn't even get to the part where Happy just backs up for no reason. Then they just fight amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Tony and Ivan for a while. Didn't even get there. The point is, if you're going to have two action sequences really in your movie, and the third one that is kind of fun between Rhodey and Cap, not Cap, Iron Man.
yeah.
It just, you can't do it like this.
Yeah.
And it's such a step down. And I think the ending CGI clusterfuck is pretty great, actually. I think this is a lot more fun of an action sequence. So I just don't understand how this happens. And it's emblematic of, in my opinion, just everything wrong with this movie. Poorly thought out, poorly executed, and just missing the point of what made Iron Man 1, I think, so tight and so special.
Well, it just feels like an action sequence to have an early in the film action sequence. You go from great opening sequence with Tony arriving at Stark Expo. Amazing energy there, amazing lines, iconic imagery of him in front of the giant flag with the dancing Iron Man girls. Great. You go to the Senate sequence, which is him just doing Tony Stark stand up in front of a bunch of senators. Phenomenal sequence.
I love that.
You get a little bit of things establishing that he's dying of fucking poisoning, which we'll get to, and then you're just like, oh well, gotta have an action sequence. And so we're going to ship them off to fucking Spain or whatever.
Before they were in Monaco, but before the action sequence, we have to have our celebrity cameo.
Not in Spain? Is it Portugal?
Monaco? It might be in Spain.
None of us know.
We don't know. But we have to have our celebrity cameo of one elongated muskrat. So thanks for dropping that in.
That was weird. I forgot that happened.
Yeah.
I wonder if we ever made that electric jet. Is it canon that Tony Stark stole the Quinjet idea from Elon Musk?
Is it canon that Elon Musk crashes the cryptocurrency market in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yes, absolutely it is. I mean, if anything, Tony Stark probably get on that. You get yourself some Stark coin.
Stark NFTs.
NFTs.
Holy shit-a-moly.
Okay, but there's already too much horse shit in this movie for us to get
Speaking of Stark, though, we should talk about Tony Stank in this film. Okay. Yes. I think he's kind of less likable than in the first movie because they sort of toy with this thing of Tony Stark coming to terms with his own mortality. He's slowly dying. Yeah. That's the reason why he gets in the race car. We don't see that decision from him, but you can kind of extrapolate that out. That's maybe why he does it.
there's a thematic thing of he's dying, so he's acting more rashly. He wants to experience a bunch of stuff. He wants to just be go, go, go because he's burning out. Doesn't matter. Like get as much shit done as he can. And I think that's an interesting idea, especially for a guy as bold and brash and all over the place as Tony Stark, to crank him up to 11 and put that ticking time bomb literally within him.
Yeah.
But the fact is that doesn't actually get enough screen time. The idea that he's dying of palladium poisoning to make it feel weighty. You get a couple of check-ins of him having some fucking gobbledygook on his chest, but that's really it. And it's strange that they decided to have this really important and character-defining idea of him dying relegated to like the D plot of the film.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a ticking time bomb, like you said, Tucker.
He turns into the guy from Beastly.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your input, Abram.
But what I was going to say is that I think that Tony, as usual, is the consistently great through line throughout this movie. And while I think that this plot line should have been the A plot and maybe the only plot of the film, I do think that it's consistently engaging until it becomes the Deus Ex Machina of let's create new elements from a fucking national treasure map that your dad left you.
Listen. I really like the element creation sequence. I think that's one of the two sequences where Tony Stark's characterization shines, because the whole thing about Tony Stark is that, yes, he's an asshole. He's basically a way cooler Elon Musk who actually invents things. And when you get to the heart of him actually inventing things, that's where he shines. He's not just all show and no go. He is absolutely, he's a genius. He is the MCU's genius. And this is one of the sequences where that comes through, I think, maybe one of the very few in the MCU, unfortunately, but I really enjoy that. I enjoy him, sort of learning that his father didn't hate him, essentially, that he sort of had this post-mortem connection with his father, and plays into another theme that this movie plays with, which is legacy, which I think it also kind of mishandles, but I can get to in a second because I want to know your guys' thoughts on that.
Tucker, I'll take this one first because I put a message in Discord.
Anyway.
Right on. I put a message in Discord at the point where the element creation scene started, where I said, I genuinely do not even know what the plot of the movie is right now. And my problem with this is not what that does for Tony as a character moment, because I think it's a pretty great character moment. Yeah. My problem with it is how it plays into the movie that is Iron Man 2, right?
Sure.
The Iron Man 2 that I would have loved is the Iron Man 2 where that is the movie, where Tony is dealing with himself and his father and all of these thematic ideas, right? But that's not what we get. And instead we get this element creation that's predicated on a really haphazardly set up like wild goose chase that Nick Fury puts him on. And I like the idea of Fury forcing him to think about himself and his place in the world. I think that's good material, but I just don't think it pans out properly. And that's how I feel about every element of the film. It's not a bad idea. It's a great idea. It's a really interesting idea. This is cool comic booky stuff. We're discovering a new element. Yeah. I'm fucking burning the laser through my wall as I'm turning to create the core. It's all great, but it's not great here.
Yes. No. It comes entirely out of left field. It's sort of a down section in an area of a movie you wouldn't expect a down. I don't mean down in terms of concept, but in terms of energy. You're going go 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 go. Oh, okay. He's stuck in his house, but not really. Coulson is there, but not really. Nick Fury was there for like 5 seconds and he fucks off. Yeah. Black Widow's.
He had to go to New Mexico.
Something. There's just a lot of contrivances. That's true. But there's
a
lot
of Thor reference, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you.
Did you see the postcard sequence where he drives in New Mexico and finds Thor's hammer in the desert?
No, I didn't watch postcards.
Okay, well that would have really helped explain it. But it leans on so many contrivances to have this set of situations put Tony in this situation that it just kind of feels bumbling to me, and it feels out of place in the film because you weren't really leading to him discovering another element and wanting to connect back to his dad and stuff, and until they tell you, okay, he's going to do that now, and it feels like the movie has to spin its wheels to catch up to itself, which is very strange.
I want to talk about the legacy thing very quickly because they sort of, like I said,
real quick.
Sorry. Yeah, we're on a racetrack here. We're in the Indy 500. This time it's in Monaco. But the legacy
reminds me, by the way, of Cars 2. I'm pretty sure that exact same kind of sequence happened in Cars 2.
The legacy thing is So there's this intertwined thing of, Howard Stark and Anton Vanko and Tony Stark and Ivan Vanko. And it's a because Ivan he sort of teases these things out. He's like, I'm going to expose the truth of the Stark family, the dark history that you have. But then Nick Fury does an exposition dump all right before the element creation scene where he's like, actually, Howard Stark did nothing wrong. He was 100% wholesome and great guy. Did nothing wrong. It was Anton who wanted to get rich off of this invention, and Howard had no profit motive whatsoever. He was doing it out of the kindness of his heart. And Tony, you don't have to come to terms with anything about the dark history of your past. You just have to defeat the bad guy who's angry that his dad didn't get rich. And that's a very lazy conclusion to that legacy concept instead of making it interesting and nuanced like you would like in a film.
Mm-hmm. See, I think that applies to all of the bungled themes in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The one line that stood out to me the most in the entire movie is that Tony Stark is at the hearing and he says, I did what we've always tried to do. I finally privatized world peace.
Mm-hmm.
That is an enormous thing to say in your movie that needs to be unpacked. When the last film was very precise in its messaging about war profiteering and everything, right? And I thought Iron Man 2 is going to take that in an interesting direction, but that gets dropped immediately. Every thematic element, every tie that gets brought up is just cut. And I find that to be a really disappointing side effect of the overstuffed nature of the surface plot events of the movie.
I think that that might have gotten cut out of necessity based on the pure amount of military stuff that is in this, the military equipment and settings and stuff that they needed to ask the Department of Defense for. They might not have wanted to touch on war profiteering and the military industrial complex as a theme of their film. Which, stop being cowards, Disney. Just do it.
Let's talk about cool stuff for a little bit if we want to.
Well, let's move on.
Abram, what cool stuff do you want to talk about?
The first thing I want to talk about is War Machine and Rhodey.
Yes.
Because I am a huge Don Cheadle fan. I think Don Cheadle...
Who's not?
Right.
Who amongst us?
Don Cheadle is War Machine, right?
Yes.
I think that the recasting is always a little bit weird, pulling a Dark Knight trilogy Rachel moment, right? But I think that just the charisma that Don Cheadle brings to the role is really great. And I love the relationship that he has with Tony in this film. I think it feels a little bit haphazard in Iron Man 1 or like doesn't have enough time to develop. But here I think there's a lot of great moments, not only their showdown at Tony's birthday, but I really love when they are fighting all of the hammer bots.
And
they're
Iron
like
Legion, as they're referred to. No, wait, that's the Iron Man 3 on his suits. It's like the proto Iron Legion.
And then when they're having the conversation about like, okay, we got to put the big gun up on the hill, and who's the big gun, right? It's really great stuff. I think that dynamic is so fun.
Yeah, they bicker to the point where they're stuck in the die hole or whatever
kill
the
box.
hell. The kill box. Thank you.
The die hole.
I prefer to calling it the die hole, if you will.
But I do think you're right. Don Cheadle brings a lot better chemistry and comedic timing, and as a foil to Tony Stark.
I was going to say Terrence Howard.
No, to Tony Stark than Terrence Howard was in the first one. And I think that honestly extends to the rest of the cast, which I think is great overall. A lot of them are underutilized, but it is not a product of them or the things that they do, but of the story being so overstuffed. I think that Scarlett Johansson is great in her first role as Black Widow. She's doing a lot more subverting of everyone's expectations in the story of the plot of the film than she does in almost any of the other films. In their smaller roles, Nick Fury and Phil Coulson are both a lot of fun. I think his relationship with Pepper is significantly better than in the first one. And all around the cast and supporting cast, and of course Justin Hammer is phenomenal. Mickey Rourke being sort of the one sticking point. But it just feels so unfortunate to say, okay, all these great characters, all these great ideas, but they're not given enough time to shine. But I think that Rhodey is kind of the one exception to that, and Pepper to an extent. I do like him taking the suit. I like coming into his own in that way, sort of having a little bit of conflict with the military, but realizing that he's a colonel. He needs to fit into this role and serve his superiors. And then, of course, them teaming up at the end is great. And while I think that the whole end sequence of the hemorrhoids, as he refers to them.
Oh yeah, the hemorrhoid attack.
Yeah, the hemorrhoids attacking Stark Expo, and then subsequently whatever the fuck big ass ball they were in is a good sequence. It's just that sequence is only good because of their chemistry, their energy, and not from my opinion, the pacing or the choreography. Because until they get into that ball that they fight in, it's just shit blowing up and fucking things flying everywhere. And he's locked onto Tony, but never once Tony get hit by anything. Like there's a lot of stuff going on there that is not well telegraphed. But as soon as they land, I do think that gets better because their chemistry and their action together work so well.
Yeah, I think when you end up in the Kill Bill final fight area in the garden, and that is really good stuff. The one thing I wanted to jump on for a second is the shield stuff, which for me works really well. I think it's one of the better elements of the film. Reason being is it reminds me a lot of how Spider-Man is introduced in Civil War, in the sense that it relies more so on you having a familiarity with these characters and just throws you right in the thick of it with them. I think that especially if you're coming back to Iron Man 2 and knowing who Natasha is, that stuff is even more fun, like watching her just fuck up Happy, or that whole great fight sequence I think is pretty well choreographed, where she's knocking at all the guys in the hallway, and then it cuts to Happy hitting the one guy. He's like, I got him. The camera pans and there's like fucking 12 guys.
There's one guy hanging from the ceiling somehow.
He's got his hands in there. He's got his hands in there so he can still breathe, I guess.
Unlike the two guys that Ivan Vanko fucking hangs in his room, just dangling their corpses, which I was like, oh shit, that's dark.
And I've always liked Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson. I'm a big Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. apologist, so that definitely colors my perspective a little bit. But I think that he's fun there. I think that Nick Fury, of course, is great. The donut shop sequences you're talking about, again, that could have been a movie, right? Talking about things that could have been movies, but I do still think it was a really fun element of the film.
Yeah, I think what the core of it is here, and most of our complaints, is that this movie would have been a lot better if you cut out Whiplash or something like that and focused on Tony Stark as a character, especially as a lead into the Avengers, where they set up reasons why he's like not cut out to be on the team. You know, he's a textbook narcissist. He doesn't work well with others. He is reckless and vain and stuff like that. If we saw more of that, and we drew it from, he's coming to terms with his mortality and stuff like that, so the audience knows there's a reason behind that, there's a much better and more compelling film here. That is just overstuffed with a lot of unnecessary garbage.
I think really my final point that I want to say about this, and this is not necessarily anything new, but sort of just an encapsulation of what we've been saying, is that this movie is a series of, for the most part, really fun sequences, memorable moments, good characters, interesting ideas, but it does not have the interstitial material to carry all of that. It is slapdash together. You cut from scene to scene. The progression doesn't really make sense. The villains are intercut with the main story in a really choppy way, and everything is just mashed together and spat out in this. It's Iron Man 2. And I will look back on this movie in a positive light, and my score will reflect that, because I do think that on the whole, each individual sequence of this movie has enough fun and engaging moments for me to remain engaged throughout, have a good time, think that this is a solid continuation of Tony's stories, a solid setup for a lot of future things, a solid entry in the MCU. I don't think that it deserves all the hate that it gets, because there is so many good ideas in here and so many fun sequences, but it is a really poorly constructed film.
Yeah. I think there is a reason why Jon Favreau didn't return for the third film. I think there's I don't know a lot about the behind the scenes stuff, but I'm going to guess that there was quite a bit of meddling, and like, no, you have to do this stuff. You have to go by the textbook here. You have to set up some stuff for the future films.
Yeah.
I think there was probably quite a bit of that. And if you know about that, let us know down in the comments. Also, let us know your thoughts about Iron Man 2. We should encourage you to share with us your thoughts in the Discord as well. Like I said, that link's in the description.
Share with us. We don't bite.
Share with us. Well, hard.
Unless you want us to.
Oh, nice.
Ooh, that's a good one. Everyone always goes hard, but I think unless you want us to is a great way for us to
come on to our audience.
Yes.
My closing thoughts on the movie is this, because my score might be peculiarly high.
Okay.
I said it a little bit in the Hulk video as you guys are running at 2 frames a second, so that was a little bit disjointed. So now that we're running a little bit better, I want to express it a little bit more fully. I don't necessarily watch superhero movies for objectively excellent filmmaking.
Yeah,
sure.
And I don't mean that as a slight against comic book movies. I mean that as comic book movies, for me, are different. My expectations are different than when I'm watching, say, an Oscar film for Quest for the Bestest, our show that you should watch. Same as when I'm reading a comic book opposed to a novel. And for me, there's other considerations opposed to just the cohesion of the narrative. I think that the best superhero movies are really compelling pieces of filmmaking and really fun comic book movies. But for me, watching Iron Man 2, going through the 2 hours, 10 minutes or so, pretty smoothly, having a ton of laughs, a lot of great concepts, fun moments, for me, that is enough to think of this as a good comic book movie.
Yeah.
It's not going to touch Iron Man 1 or some of the other films we're going to talk about, because it does not have that quality behind it. But on the Abram Buner patented subjective fun comic book movie scale, it's pretty damn high, because I think that there are a ton of good ideas here.
Well, let's stop beating around the bush about this point scale and let's get down to brass tacks, shall we, gents? Do you have our mystical magical spreadsheet pulled up, our Google spreadsheet? Yeah. Fantastic. All right, everyone put your little numbers in. I'm sure there's a decimal or two in there. Well, hopefully not two, just one, probably. But as long as we all have it in there, let's hit that enter and reveal it.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Okay. I am. I'll read them out here. In descending order, we have Tucker at a 7.2, Abram at a 7.1, and me at a 5.6. Now, it sounded like you guys were a bit united on that. Maybe I am coming down a little bit too hard on this film, but yeah, I think talking about it, I think there is such a potential for a greater film, and it probably started out as a better film in the writer's room. I think there's such a potential for it here that I can't really excuse it, because a lot of times it can be like, oh, I wish a movie was this, but it doesn't really reflect in my score. But I think you can see it through the weeds of this movie too much that it sort of does negatively impact it for me.
Yeah. There's no, except for Whiplash, there's no one point about this movie that I think destroys it, which is why I have it at a decently high score.
Yes.
I think this is a lot higher than what most people give Iron Man 2, and that's reflected in the average score on Letterboxd and whatever. But I have a ton of fun with this movie. If I look back on it, I'm not going to remember that it's disjointed. I'm going to remember Tony Stark landing on the stage. I'm going to remember the War Machine and Tony fighting back to back. I'm going to remember the birthday fight. I'm going to remember the introduction of Black Widow and War Machine as his own character, and furthering Pepper and Tony's relationship, and the suitcase turning into an Iron Man suit. All of these fun, iconic, well-crafted moments that just happen to be in a framework that is rickety.
I still like this film. I still had fun with it. So don't yell at me too harshly in the comments. And I should say, for our math doers out there, you're way ahead of us. This film does get an average score of 6.6 on our scale, placing it nicely at second place, in between first Iron Man with an 8.6, and The Incredible Hulk with a 3.2. So there's a bit of a margin there between what we think is by and far the worst film of the MCU, at least the rational ones of the group here. But thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time with Thor, if you watch the post-credit scene of this, unlike Abram Buner.
This one I've actually seen recently.
Really? I'm excited to revisit Thor.
Genre to watch it.
Hey, there you have it. Why not? It's a good, fun, rewatchable one, apparently. Also, Stan Lee was what's his name? Larry King, and Peter Parker was in it as well. They retconned that, so he's in it. Yeah. I had to get that in there so people don't actually me in the comments. But Thor next time. Kenneth Branagh, Chris Hemsworth, Loki, couple other people, maybe a Hannibal Lecter or two. But regardless.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.
You're welcome.